Thank you. I think the issue of the committee has been dealt with, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what surprises me? Madam Speaker. Oh, Dabana.
Chair, we cannot go back. They have clapped for you. They have welcomed you. Senator Ali, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I support the censure motion fully, without fear, because these two gentlemen have failed this country. But the problem is, what shocks me in this country is that when we are here as senators or members of the National Assembly, we claim we are representing our constituents, we are doing this. Who do these CSs or ministers represent? This is the whole problem. These people don't care about who you represent. They represent the authority that elected them or appointed them, for that matter. And what shocks me is for people who have been in these houses of parliament for that long, because we have been with Keter and Munyes all along. People are suffering. They are losing their livelihoods. The freezers break down every day, no compensation, and still we are being charged excessively every day, day in, day out. How are people going to be transported to those far areas which are over 2,000, 3,000 kilometers away when the fuel prices are increased every other day? How do we survive in this country if this is the way we want to continue, Madam Speaker? Sorry. So we cannot continue with this. My apologies. We cannot continue, and I think the leadership, us ourselves included, we have to take the blame. It's said in our religion, in my religion, that if you feel something is bad and you can do something about it, you stand up and say, this one will not happen. If you cannot do it, you talk about it. You say the wrongs which are there. You say this is wrong. This one I don't appreciate. This one I don't agree. And I am saying now, because I represent the people of Wajir and Kenya at large, I don't agree with these fuel prices increments, even if I can do nothing about it. I should say it so that people hear it, Madam Speaker. And the other one is, we have a problem of leadership. I think there's nothing to hide about that, especially on this side. Especially on this side of the House. Our leadership has failed. There is nothing to hide. We will say it. Where is the majority leader? Failed. Where is the chief whip? Failed. Deputy majority leader? Failed. Even my sister, who is very active, has run away right now. So, because she was the only one who was here. All the others decided to not to appear. So why should she be here? She has also left. This is a very sad thing. So, I think this is not the way to go. The other issue is the committees might have a problem, but committees work. If they don't, if we, because of what we do here, as we have agreed earlier, let us support this censure motion. Let us support the Senate, because if you don't respond to the Senate summons, if you don't, ministers, do not, can you protect me? Can you protect me?
Order, members.
Madam Speaker, these Tanga people should respect the people
Please
on the floor.
Don't waste this.
These Tanga people.
Order, members. Order, members. Allow him to
protect me, Madam Speaker.
His last 1 minute.
Madam Speaker,
last 1 minute.
There's no need for people to make noise here because they know where we all came from. These missed problems, we have all part and parcel of it. From the first day people were appointed, we were told this was. The second time, we were told this was. We have to follow the orders. So, now you have no authority. Thank you, but no. Madam Speaker, I want also to say about this, Madam, this fuel increase, as it has been mentioned severally by many people, is affecting all sectors. Next time, we might not be able to travel as members of parliament. Forget about the public. We can't travel. When I go to Wajir, I use over 20,000, 30,000, Madam Speaker. Now, It's not even possible. It will go to 40, 50,000. One way only. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Inima Keter Musuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the motion by Senator Orengo. And Honorable Speaker, it is really unthinkable and painful that the two CSAs are actually implying that Senate is a toothless bulldog, that it will just bark, but has no teeth. Their actions are contemptuous. Their actions have really demeaned the Senate, and it is unfortunate that they just decided not to appear. They did not even send representatives at all, and they did not care at all. And it is unfortunate that they are also defying the Constitution that we are all supposed to be defending. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that the two CSAs, the President needs to know, have let him down. Because it is very clear that all of us as leaders must look for a way of defending the Constitution. And Senator Orengo took us through the articles that are very pertinent when it comes to the role of the CSAs. Article 53 states very clearly that they're supposed to report to the Senate what is happening within their jurisdiction. And we have also been reminded of Article 125 that gives Senate the powers that can be equated to that of a Supreme Court, that the Senate can even ask anybody to appear before the Senate, and even when the Senate appears. Honorable Speaker, kindly protect me. Protect me kindly, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Senators, please talk in low tones so that we can hear the member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was just alluding to the fact that this motion is indeed very pertinent, and it needs to set a precedent, so Honorable Speaker, that articles of the Constitution are being flouted, and there's nothing we are doing as a Senate. There is need for the Senate to really assert itself and show that we have the powers, just like a Supreme Court would summon someone, and the person would come and a verdict made, Honorable Speaker. And I'm just, worried, Honorable Speaker. I'm not sure whether actually there's a law that helps in effecting CSAs who flout sections of the Constitution. These two sections of the Constitution, Article 125 and Article 53, need to be backed up by a law that can, obligate CSAs to appear before the Senate and give the reports that they are supposed to give within their jurisdiction periodically, and even when they are summoned, they should come, because Kenyans are listening, Honorable Speaker. We saw Kenyans along Thika Road really frustrated, and they actually barricaded the road. They did not do that because they really wanted, but they are sending a communication that there is need for Parliament to do something about the skyrocketing prices of fuel, Honorable Speaker. So there's need for us as a Senate to insist that they should come. And in fact, if they're not coming, I don't know whether there is any sanction to them, because if there's no sanction, then it means there's a lacuna in implementing these sections of the Constitution. I hope we have enough time that can help in us coming up with laws that will ensure that CSAs who abdicate their roles, CSAs that refuse to appear before the Senate, are actually sanctioned. Because if they're sanctioned, then they'll be forced to ensure that they're coming before the Senate, they're coming before the National Assembly, and they're actually answering to the pertinent questions, Honorable Speaker. Remember, they are there not for any presidency. They are there for the purpose of ensuring service delivery to Kenyans. And when they're nominated by the President feels that these are the people, the kitchen cabinet, that can now also help him, serve Kenyans effectively. So if they're not doing that, then they become a letdown, Honorable Speaker. So I support this motion, and I hope that the CSS will appear before the Senate, and it should be a precedent also to other CSS. Because, Honorable Speaker, sometimes when you ask questions about the people we represent, some CSS just do a desk response, Honorable Speaker, until you just wonder, was there any investigation done towards the statement that was given, Honorable Speaker? We do not need desk responses, Honorable Speaker. We need investigations, empirical evidence being brought to this House, Honorable Speaker, so that whatever statements that we ask, Honorable Speaker, see the light of the day. And Kenyans must know that we are not happy about what has happened, and we are going to represent them and continue representing them effectively as they have sent us, Honorable Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Senator Sakaja Johnson, other.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, if you look at the wording of this motion, the action that is required by the Senate is in 2 steps. The first one, of course, is the focus on the increase of the fuel prices, which have gone up inordinately high. And the second one focuses on the cabinet secretaries who absconded and have failed to appear before the Senate. So, Madam Speaker, I'll make my remarks in that order. The first issue, I think, has been overstated. And as I said yesterday, our work really today was not to join Kenyans in lamenting the increase, because Kenyans know the prices are inordinately high. The people I represent, Madam Speaker, are suffering. And that is the same as with the people all of you represent. They're really suffering. And for us in Nairobi, it's even worse, because of late, we have a very, very, I don't want to call it overzealous, but a terrible approach at our traders and our business people. You find that now that KRA is collecting taxes in Nairobi, a normal trader, Madam Speaker, what they're going through, the women I talk to, the mamambogas, some of them being bungled into those city council vehicles because of not being able to pay 50 shillings, it's as if, again, and I've said this before, it's as if there is a war with the people. So, Madam Speaker, it's a terrible situation. Yesterday, when we were talking about the disaster bill, I told you about how businesses are being closed because people have not paid for a fire license for 4,500 shillings. Yet when you pay for it, all you're given is a document, not even the fire extinguisher, as if that certificate will help you prevent a fire, So there's a terrible approach towards this collection of levies and taxes to our people. It's as if, Madam Speaker, there is a target that is not being met elsewhere. This fuel is at the highest level historically. And I think what Kenyans expect from us is solutions. We must provide solutions and leadership. And I think, and I believe, that the Senate should be a bit creative in how we address this issue. We've seen the National Assembly and the directions given yesterday, where they have a committee that is supposed to report within 14 days. Ideally, and our standing orders provide for it, our Committee of Energy should have been working in concert with the Committee of the National Assembly on this matter. The standing orders provide for joint sittings, because there are some ideas that can come from the Senate that would be useful in this discussion. Madam Speaker, the problem, and I heard Senator Mutula asking how many levies there are, is that there are 7 levies. 7 levies and 2 taxes on our fuel. 7 levies and 2 taxes. And Madam Speaker, on top of that, the one levy where there is leeway to actually cushion Kenyans is the fuel, the Petroleum Development Levy, Madam Speaker. That is where the answer is on this issue. Between July 2020 and July 2021, 14.6 billion shillings has been collected. In fact, if you remember July 14th, 2021, where there was supposed to be an increase by EPRA, they didn't do the increase. It was supposed to go from $1.17 to 1.2, but because they said they could use that fund, they cushioned. Madam Speaker, we just need to amend that pricing formula and do 2 things. One, there needs to be a thorough audit of that Petroleum Development Levy. Madam Speaker, I suspect, and the people I've spoken to, there is a hole in that levy. There is money that is not accounted for, because by now, they should be able to come and tell our committee how much has been collected since its introduction. Remember, it was 40 cents, and now it is 5 shillings, 40 cents. In that period, I suspect close to 50 billion or 40 billion has been collected. That is the amount of money that would cushion. And we just add something simple in the formula. We've dealt with formulas in this house. We are known for that. That the formula applies, but if the cost goes above 110 shillings, then the government subsidizes that. As simple as that. Or 105 shillings. That can be done because the amount is there. Let them come and explain to us how much they've collected and where that amount is and what it has been used for. I shudder at the thought that that difference, Madam Speaker, is probably being used for other things. And that is where the real investigation should be. So I don't know what else the Energy Committee should be looking at, while the law, and I can see Senator Ledama is in agreement, because the law has provided for that. Yes, it is us, it is the National Assembly that passed all those taxes, but even if you remove the component of the tax, that 5.4 shillings a litre by now should be able to cushion. And we just add one rider on that formula, that if and only if the total cost does not go above 105. So no matter whatever happens, no matter how the crude changes, if it goes above 105, then that levy cushions Kenyans. Fuel will never go above 105 or 110. That's the solution we should have. The second issue, because I've seen time has gone, and I wanted to speak more on that, is the issue of censure. Madam Speaker, it is disappointing. It is disappointing. And I wish this motion, when you brought it, Senator Orengo, some of us on this side were willing to second, so it didn't look like it's a minority motion. Madam Speaker, cabinet secretaries must realize that when you come to this house, you're not coming to listen to Ledama and his issues. It's the people of Narok. It's the people of Siaya. It's the people of Kenya, Madam Speaker. And I'm disappointed because as chairs of committees, we've had interactions and we sat down with this National Government Coordinating Committee. We agreed with them that, okay, maybe you're being called for various different reasons. We can coordinate, but you must come. We'll give you adequate notice, and we conduct our oversight. But, Madam Speaker, these days, it is as if you're asking them for a favor to come. That let's see which day we are free. I can come on this day. It's not a coffee date we are calling you for. It is oversight according to the Constitution. So if you're invited, you must attend. And, Madam Speaker, the funny thing, because many of them use the excuse that they've been called to State House. Before I came to this house, I worked in the National Treasury with the President. And I remember any time he'd been called to Parliament, even if he's in State House, his boss, President Mwai Kibaki would tell him, first attend to Parliament, then come back here. Because that is the priority. Madam Speaker, that is what this CS should be doing. And that is what they should know, because they're answering to us. There is disdain. It's a contempt of Parliament. There is disdain towards this house. And I don't know why that, I don't know whether it is being encouraged from where they sit, but we must put our foot down. Madam Speaker, today I was having a very serious issue that all of you are concerned about, the issue of councillors. And on that issue, in fact, I asked this CSS, some of us have a hard time trying to defend you because we're in government, we're in the government party, but we cannot do it anymore. Finally, CS Chelugui showed up, CS Wamalwa showed up, but CS Atani was not able to show up again. So we've issued summons. I've issued summons to the CS Treasury. He must appear in a week. If not, then those provisions in the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act then shall apply, because they must understand we're not calling them because we're idle. We're not calling them because we have our own issues we want to address. It is on behalf of the Kenyans, the people of Kenya, who their sovereign power is exercised through us, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if it is not in your docket, you come to Parliament and you say, on this matter, it is not my docket, but kindly this is the lead agency on that issue. But you don't just decide to ignore and not show up when you've been invited to the Senate. I think that is completely wrong, and they must be reprimanded. Madam Speaker, this behavior is not by all the CSs. I must say that. Because in as much as we're mentioning the two, in my committee, and those who've been members of my committee, I think we've had, just allow me just 1 minute to finish that sentence. We've had a good time with a number of the CSs. Some of them always honor. CS Amina Mohammed, CS Joe Musheru, CS Chelugui, CS Wamalwa, they always come. And even the CASs who are performing well, from Tutu to Gashuhie to Obure, have been members of Parliament. Those ones we must commend at the same time as we reprimand and express our disaffection and disappointment at the behavior of these two. Madam Speaker, I support this motion.
Senator Nyamunga Rose Ogendo.
I want to be here. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I want to say that I support this motion, which is brought by my minority leader, Senator James Orengo, who has really moved this motion and given us what it takes for us to deliberate on this motion. Madam Speaker, I want to say that all the members of this House who have spoken, they have spoken to the real issues that concerns the motion. First of all, it is about the rogue ministers, and secondly, it is about the runaway cost of fuel. And it is not only fuel, we included the power. Madam Speaker, we are living at a very difficult time where we deal with members of parliament who don't care about their people. They don't know why they are in this house. We are into blame game, trying to blame each other instead of facing the problems that are facing this country. We have a rogue ministers, a set of ministers. Some of them I hear are good. Last time I was talking to a minister, and I don't want to name him, and I raised an issue with him. The way he reacted was so irritating that I didn't even know what to do. And yet it was a matter that was concerning the goodness of the people of Kenya. I must say that if we don't work on the level of arrogance and pride that we display in this country, outside and inside parliament, we are taking Kenyans for a ride, and I think the problem is with Kenyans, because Kenyans keep giving themselves wrong people. We cannot sit here and try to blame a government, and you are part of that government. We know very well that if you don't like a marriage, you get out of that marriage and get another husband and work with that husband. But you cannot sit here to discredit and keep discrediting and blame gaming, and yet you do nothing about it. Yet, from here you are going to get into your vehicle, go to a petrol station and fill your vehicle without a problem. You are going to your house, pay your bills without a problem. Yet you go to the women and ask them for their vote, and you know you are cheating them. Madam Speaker, my reggae has been stopped. These two ministers have stopped my reggae. I had a very good project of distributing gas cookers to the women of Kisumu. And it was a wonderful project because it was helping in the health of the women and the children. It was helping on the preservation of our forests and everything. And at the same time, it was giving these poor women a proper way of cooking and putting food before their children. But every time I worked on this project, Madam Speaker, the increment, it was done every day until my reggae came to a stop. When I went to the Ministry of Energy, to the Ministry of Petroleum, and I talked to the PS. First of all, I was refused. I could not see the PS because I did not have an appointment. I visited the PS 5 times, and I made some good drama there. And I told them I'm not coming here for a favor. I'm coming here to serve the people of Kisumu. Secondly, I had a very good project of poultry farming. When I was growing up, poultry was not to be a farm. Poultry was to be with every woman. My mother never went to the market to buy chicken. It was a given that every woman had to have chicken. Right now, my father took me to school. He told me, I'm taking you to school so that your future will be better. My future is not better if the future of the women in the village is not better. So what I'm saying, this poultry farming of mine, it was brought to another reggae stop. Why? Because of the constant supply of electricity. All the machinery had to break down because of the irregularity on the supply of electricity. And secondly, the prices, the same price of electricity. I already talked about it. I don't want to repeat it. But what I'm saying is that as a people, as leaders of Kenya, we are really misleading the country. We are misleading our people. We are riding on the energy of our very, very poor people. Over the weekend, I was home, and I had an opportunity to visit a very good friend of mine. Unfortunately, as I was heading there, by the roadside, I saw a woman struggling by the roadside. And this woman was actually delivering by the roadside. So I had to take her to the hospital, help her, and make sure that I delivered her back to her home. That was in a place in Muhoroni. But when I delivered her to her home, Madam Speaker, this woman had nothing in the house. She had 3 more children, plus the newborn, a husband who is cutting sugarcane, which sugarcane nobody pays, nobody. And yet this woman delivered, and there was no food, there was no there was nothing, no form. I looked at the poverty. I looked at the disparity of poverty that we have in this country, and it is unfortunate that we continue to mislead our people and tell them we are leading you. If this is the position, I don't think that we should even contest and tell people that we want to make your lives better. When I joined politics, my idea was to make my people better, to make the women better, the youth better, to make sure that their tomorrow would be better. But that is not what I'm seeing. And we continue to mislead our people. The 2 ministers have displayed a high sense of impunity. And this impunity, we see it all over this country. It is not only with the ministers, because the ministers will learn from what you see, what your seniors do. If your seniors are abusing each other in the streets, what would the minister be doing? So I think we are giving a road deal to our Kenyans. I think what is happening in this country is wrong, and I think we should be very serious with the affairs and the people of Kenya. I support the motion, Madam Speaker.
Yeah, I'm informed that Senator Murkomen's card failed twice. So Senator Murkomen, please come forward.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. First, thank you. First, Madam Speaker, I want to thank Senator Orengo for the boldness with which he came up and moved this motion. It takes the boldness of such a person to do so, especially in the handshake government of the last 4 years. That, Madam Speaker, people have not been as bold as they used to be when there was an opposition side in the country. Madam Speaker, we are dealing with a very serious issue. There are 2 parts of this motion. Part 1 of the motion deals with the problem facing the country at the moment, which is the problem of fuel. The economy is struggling. The country is facing challenges of unemployment. It's also facing the challenges of cost of living. And every time the prices of fuel are increased, it not only affects directly the prices that the fuel we directly use, but indirectly affects all parts of the economy, because the cost of transport for goods goes up. The cost of fuel has an impact on the cost of electricity. And therefore, when we discuss fuel, the problem with this sector per se is that it affects all the sectors of the economy. Madam Speaker, we have come here to discuss cabinet secretaries and to blame them. But Madam Speaker, this problem is not domained only on the Ministry of Energy or Ministry of Petroleum. This is a problem that is in every part and sector of the executive. It is, Madam Speaker, a problem that should have been discussed by a cabinet that has not met for the last almost 8 months. Madam Speaker, this is a problem that should have made the President to call even more than 4 cabinet meetings in a week. Madam Speaker, Senator Mutula Kilonzo quoted President Harry Truman, who used to have a sign on his table, a plaque on his table, that on one side is written, I come from Missouri. And on the other side of that plaque, Madam Speaker, is written, the buck stops here. It was a gift from a friend. And when President Harry Truman was retiring, in his retirement speech, farewell speech to the people of America, he said, and I quote, the president, whoever he is, has to decide. He can't pass the buck to anybody. No one else can do the deciding for him. That is his job. Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate as the Senate that we would come here and pass the buck to cabinet secretaries, that we even come here and pass the buck to Parliament, or try even to pass the buck to National Assembly or the Senate for that matter. The problem stops and starts with the office of the president. What is the position of government? What's the position of the executive on the issue of fuel prices? Madam Speaker, it is not rocket science and it's not hidden in this country that the Ministry of Treasury, where the resources are domained or are situated, has a responsibility on the question of fuel prices. It is not Governor, it's not President, it's not CS Munyes, it's not CS Keter. As a matter of fact, Senator Sakaja has captured it so well. There is a stabilization fund that is established under the Petroleum Development Levy that is collected from the taxes that come from fuel. Madam Speaker, we know, and it's in the public domain, and it's the responsibility of the chair of the committee, Madam Speaker, to bring this information to the fore and table a report in this House. That in this House, in this country, Madam Speaker, 35 billion of stabilization fund cannot be traced. Why? Because the government of Kenya, led by the president and his cabinet, have diverted 35 billion that would have been used to stabilize the prices of fuel to other sectors, to finance, Madam Speaker, fund them, what is called monuments in terms of projects that are supposed to be a signature for personal pride and ego. Madam Speaker, these projects, we know that for the last 4 years, there have been projects that are being implemented by the government of Kenya, which projects have not gone through any procurement process. A procurement process has been shortchanged by using the military so that these projects are run at night. They are actually supervised at night. So that there are too many concrete buildings across the country at the expense of the economy of this country. That is the real discussion we should be having as the people of Kenya. And we must ask ourselves, what is the president's position on the question of fuel prices? We cannot come here and ask about Senator Keter or Munyes or whoever. Those are small people. The problem is bigger than that. We have an economy and a country that is being run like a juakali. How do you explain that a nation has never had a cabinet meeting for 8 months? What kind of a country is that? For all this year where we are, it's actually 9 months. The cabinet of the Republic of Kenya has not met to decide or pass anything. Senator Amos Wako here was Attorney General in Moi's days, despite the fact that you say he was a dictator. Nothing like that has ever happened, where the cabinet doesn't meet. Madam Speaker, you know, in Kibaki's regime, Senator Sakaja here was telling us, oh, you know, the president used to attend parliament, even President Kibaki used to tell him, you must go to parliament. Go to answer to parliament first before you come to see me in State House. How come he didn't learn something from President Mike Kibaki? How come he's not sending his ministers to come to this House to answer questions? Madam Speaker, it's a pity, though, that Honorable Keter and Honorable Munyes were leaders who have passed through this House and should have known better that when you are invited to this House, they should not wait for summons. They should have known better that they have a responsibility under Article 153 to appear before this House. But be it as it may, I will not stand here and say, Mr. Speaker, that they are the worst of the sinners. The CS Interior has never come here. We have called him about people being killed. He has never come here. CS Musheru has been invited by this House on ICT matters. He has never come here. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the contempt with which this executive treats this House, it's not a matter of 1 or 2 ministers. It's a collective decision of the executive as a whole. And therefore, we need, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that this House takes the ministry and the government into task. Let's know where the 35 billion went. Let's know what is the decision of the president. I'm not going to listen to a minister here who perhaps has never even met the president for the last 6 or 7 months. I want to hear the position of the president and the government of Kenya on the question of fuel prices. And that is what we want this House to deliver. The last thing I want to say is that if we want to move forward as this House, We cannot debate such a very important matter. The majority leader is not here. The deputy majority leader has run away. The whip is forever absent. His deputy has run away. You know, the chair of the committee has run away because they cannot stand any phone calls. The speaker himself, whom, you know, there is a contempt against the speaker, must also do something. But you know, this house, we decided to auction this house long time ago when we removed people like Senator Lekina, put him under pressure, remove him from chairmanship of PAC, when removed the other chairmen of committees in this house. Madam Speaker, we even thought that if some of the chairmen come from the minority side, there will be serious oversight. Now Senator Uta ran away, you know, he cannot even call the Minister of Interior. His co-senator from Kisumu, Senator Nyamunga, he is complaining, she's forgetting that they are now sitting on part of the executive. I mean, there's a problem in this country. And this problem is the whole governance model that we adopted from the time this thing called handshake came. If everything was done, if everything was funded, like the billions that were put on the futile exercise of BBI, if every reaction of government was as active as the days we used to see BBI, if the executive, the president, the former prime minister, whom we know, and I hope former prime minister doesn't think he will forget, that he mobilized his MPs to go and pass the higher taxes, and he actually held a PG to make sure that his MPs pay high taxes. We know that is the minority side in the National Assembly. Honorable Gladys Wanga, who is in charge of the Finance Committee. So we will not listen to anybody from the minority side passing the buck. And we don't want anyone to start blaming us. You were here. You removed Kindiki from here. You were here cheering when we were removed from office. So don't try to say, oh, the buck stops with those who are in UDA or whatever party. Carry your cross. Handshake government must be accountable to the people of Kenya for the things they did for the last 4 years. And I support Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ledama.
Wait for my time. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion on the two items which have been named. And the first one, I'll try to be very brief. I'll begin by following the trajectory of Minority Leader Senator Orengo, and begin by giving Kenyans a history of how many censures or how many cabinet secretaries or ministers have been censured in this country. In the history of this country, since independence, there have been 9 censure motions against 2 against the president and 7 against cabinet secretaries. 2 of them successfully resulted in a resignation. One was way back in 1966 when the then Minister for Cooperative, Paul Ngei, was censured and he resigned. He remained outside office until 1966 when the president pardoned him and he came back. The second one is the current majority leader in the National Assembly, who was censured and was forced out even after he resisted for a very long time because of questionable transaction in the transaction of the Grand Regency. Mr. Speaker, this House must now begin using the tool of censure. And even though censure does not necessarily mean resignation, I want to remind these cabinet secretaries who have turned out to be fugitives of accountability that this will remain in their record forever. And what this House needs to do is we need to begin sabotaging the work of these 2 cabinet secretaries. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, when I heard the Cabinet Secretary of Energy saying that he was invited on a matter that does not relate to him, I wondered what these cabinets, if they've ever gone to school. Because when you look at these 2 acts, which they fought so hard to pass them, and these 2 acts of parliament will haunt this nation forever. The Energy Act and the Petroleum Act. If you look at the Energy Act, And if you go to the Energy Act on the issue of UPRA, it talks about the composition of the membership of the board of UPRA. And I'll refer back to him just to correct Senator Cabinet Secretary Keter. That when you look at UPRA as an example, he fought so hard to take away UPRA from the Ministry of Petroleum to put it into energy. UPRA, if you look at UPRA, the functions of the authority is, number 2, is importation, refining, exportation, transportation, storage, and sale of petroleum and petroleum products, with the exception of crude oil. Mr. Speaker, when you go further and you look at the composition of the board of UPRA, you will find that the Cabinet Secretary of Energy is represented there. And UPRA, which is the body that on a regular basis, each 14th of every month, publishes new prices of petroleum, is the one who supervises it. It's in the Act. This is not me saying. So I want to invite this fugitive of accountability to go back and read the law. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the character of these two individuals, it makes me miss a time. And I want to remind them that there are times when we had very powerful cabinet secretaries, like Orengo, who sat in this very House of Parliament and were accountable to the people. They were asked questions. I long for that time. I was hoping that when I become the senator or a leader in this country, it will be a time when a cabinet secretary will be sitting there so that they can be able to account for people. Being called as a cabinet secretary, you must subscribe to the code of the Convention of Accountability, that when you're a cabinet secretary and you're invited to Parliament, you're not only accounting to the members of Parliament here, but you are accounting to the public. These cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, have made it so difficult, not only for the public, but also to members of Parliament to be able to access their offices. In fact, they are running those offices as if they are small kingdoms. Mr. Speaker, I said very clearly, and I want to repeat this, that these two characters are fugitive of accountability, an embodiment of executive arrogance, and this must come to an end. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind them that we have seen very powerful people come down. And when you are up there, you have to be very careful not to allow pride to bring you down. Now, to the other issue, Mr. Speaker, because I see my time is ending. We have a very serious problem, and this is a problem that we are being invited as a House to look at. Why are we in this problem in the first place? Mr. Speaker, we're in this problem because of greed. That's issue number 1. This government, or country of Kenya, now subscribe to the open tender system when it comes to the importation of oil or crude of petroleum product into this country. Mr. Speaker, what happens? And this is where we need to investigate. Because the big players now, like Total or this Shell, do not, actually for the last 2 years, have not imported any oil into this, any petroleum product into this country. And the reason being, what normally happens is this. Every so often, after every 2 months, in every 2 months, all oil marketers, they put in their, what you call their focus demand to the Ministry of Petroleum. So when all of it is added up together, they are invited by the supply coordination desk to bid. And there is a standard, just like the way when you go to a bank and you borrow a loan, where there is a central bank rate. There is something called the Platts rate. And most of these businesses that are now importing oil into this country or petroleum product into this country normally bid Platt plus either $1 or $2, assuming it is $600 to be able to import a barrel. So they say 600, that's the Platt rate, which is internationally accepted. And then they add a dollar on top. But now what has been happening, because of corruption, because of interest, because no one can be able, there's no one who can be able to supply over 400 barrels or rather metric tons of petroleum into this country, it is divided into what they call K1, K2. So when you look at, for the last 2 years, the people who have been supplying or importing the oil marketers are small players, very small people. They did that, and this was the engineers of the corrupt people in the petroleum ministry to deny National Oil Corporation an opportunity to import. Because if National Oil Corporation was going out there to negotiate, either in Qatar, either in Libya, or either in Saudi Arabia, they would be able to actually even bring it a Platt less, maybe $2 minus, which will be able to help this country. But what is happening right now, Mr. Speaker, is that since NOC was denied the opportunity to import any oil, which is actually guaranteed by a legal notice, I think it was legal notice 96, that allowed them, that reserved 30% of all the petroleum import into this country into NOC. But because it was going to be more accountable than these small businesses and the people in the petroleum ministry would not get an opportunity to get kickbacks, they are making it very difficult, such that now these small players are the ones who are importing 100% of all the petroleum which is coming to this country. Mr. Speaker, it is my prayer that our committee, and sometimes it is very embarrassing, because even though you have all this information, the more you ask for it, the more you are messing with big people in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope that our committee will look into this so that we can stop this nonsense where we are destroying this economy. Mr. Speaker, what we need to do is to remember that as leaders, we should not be here if we cannot be able to defend the people who are on the ground. So for these two fugitives of accountability, Article 226, subsection 5 of the Constitution of Kenya will go after you. And forever, when you look for an opportunity, you can never be elected, actually. And Kenyans...
Senator Christopher Langat.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me also this particular opportunity to add my voice on this. I want to congratulate Senator James Orengo. I want to congratulate you, my brother, for bringing this particular motion at this particular time. In fact, you fulfilled what the Bible says in the book of James, chapter 4, verse 17. And I want to quote, "If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and does not do it, it is a sin before God." So exactly you have known the wrong that is going around in our country, and you have actually tried your best to bring it forth to all of us. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, I support this particular motion greatly, though I have some reservation a bit concerning some few things that I want to mention. First of all, I want to say that the silence of the executive, and particularly the silence of the president and the silence of his handshake partner, is so loud in this particular matter. Perhaps we are sacrificing some few fellows that even themselves wants to offer them as sacrificial lambs. Because why are they silent at this particular moment when Kenyans are at the midst of COVID-19 and the prices of fuel is skyrocketing and people are crying everywhere, people are suffering? This is leading to another the worst crisis. Sooner or later, the prices of food will go up. And the president and his handshake partner are so silent. They are silent, he's so loud. Or rather, I want to say, They are so insensitive. And I want to equate it to the time of French Revolution, when every one of us can remember very well the Queen, Maria Antoinette, who was so insensitive to the feelings of the people during that time, to the point that she was suggesting that people should take cake, which was more expensive than bread, which was lacking. Why are the executive so loud to the suffering hustlers? Why is the president so silent? The president should come out so loudly and save Kenyans. He is aware of it, and he is quiet in the State House when people are suffering. There are so many Kenyans at this point of time who cannot travel to seek for their daily bread. There are so many Kenyans at this point of time who cannot take their children to school. And I want to say this is not the only problem. There is another problem that is coming up in the Ministry of Education. The CBC is becoming so expensive and very difficult to handle. And I want to say the president should come loud on this. He should say something about the suffering Kenyans. Why is the executive, and particularly the president and his handshake partner, so silent when the Kenyans are suffering? I support this sense of motion, Mr. Speaker, sir. Simple.
Senator Mohamud.
Mr. Speaker, let me also join my colleagues in thanking our colleague from Shire for bringing this very important censor motion this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, the issue before us actually is very serious, affecting Kenyans of all walks of life. The two cabinet secretaries were rightfully invited by a House of Parliament according to Article 153 of the Constitution. There is no reason then why they should not actually honor that invitation. So, Speaker, more so, the two CSCs were members of Parliament, having been also in the National Assembly and also in the Senate. In fact, they should have known better, in fact, more than anybody else. Mr. Speaker, Cabinet Secretaries have a lot of contempt for Parliament, but they will actually invite themselves to Parliament when they so wish. A case in point is when the Cabinet Secretary for Interior invited himself to the Committee of Security in the National Assembly discussing security withdrawal of the Deputy President. That was an invitation by himself to the committee so that he can answer his own questions that he did frame. So when they want to come to Parliament, they will come. When they don't want, they will not come. Mr. Speaker, it is serious that Kenyans today are bleeding because of bad policy. Bad policy because, first of all, we have got the problem of COVID-19, which is actually ravaging this country. COVID-19, which is also badly managed, because even the way things are going, up to today, less than 3% of Kenyans are actually being vaccinated. Funds meant for it were stolen. In fact, we have been hearing the suffering that has been also exacerbated by the people who are in power. Today, we have the fuel crisis. We have also the crisis of bad government, in the sense that the government is not coordinated. In that, what we are seeing today, because the executive is not actually able to respond to the needs of the people people who are represented by parliamentarians. The other thing is, of course, the executive is actually involved also in very bad politics, and this all actually confusing Kenyans. Kenyans are really suffering, and in fact, there's no way one parliament should sit back and watch. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow we are going to also have another committee of the whole, and I think that Cabinet Secretary will not be there on the issue of Laikipia. This is going to be the same thing for us. I think it's time we acted with, the full force of the Constitution that we have. This censure, starting actually a significant motion in the history of this Senate. Of course, other censure motions have taken place before in the preceding parliament. But this particular one, I think, in this Senate, I think, is the first one. I think we should take it further, that the executive must be brought to account to the people represented by the House of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, Houses of Parliament actually have been captured by the executive, And in fact, is where we kept ourselves. I think it's time we woke up so that, issues affecting Kenyans are dealt with properly. Mr. Speaker, the issue of fuel pricing, as mentioned by a colleague earlier, this open tender system itself is a big cartel. As what I know, having worked in that ministry one time as a minister, is that the system of importing fuel is actually managed by cartels. The pricing system itself is, very shoddy. And in fact, the reason why IPRA is doing what it's doing also is actually because so as to manipulate the system so that, people benefit from it. Today, there are more oil marketeers than there are, I know, even, the big companies are there. Every other Kenyan is actually an oil marketeer. Small briefcases are actually marketeers. And in fact, much as Kenyans should go into businesses, I think is affecting the way this business is handled. And our Committee of Energy, so that, must deal with this matter so that, we must know what is the root cause. For the time being, Mr. Speaker, there is no reason why fuel prices have increased. The fuel prices internationally have not increased. There is no reason why it has increased. I think there must be a stoppage in the implementation of what was done, last week, the fuel price increase. That must be stopped. Whatever we can do so that it can be suspended. But the two ministers are just, the two CSEs are examples or actually the same as the other guys who are there, part of them. I think is the whole, a few of them are good, the cabinet secretaries. I think this contempt must stop so that, the CSEs respond to the people's representative so that, the matters are dealt with. Mr. Speaker, this Senate will be what it is, the way it takes what it does for itself. If we don't put our feet down, if we don't become serious, people will not take us seriously. Parliament has been overtaken by the executive, and we must resist. This, what we are discussing, in fact, the hue and cry by Kenyans, even some I think I'm going to quote, the hue and cry by Kenyans about fuel prices is not being, heard from the executive. The executive also must come out and see what they feel about this. With those many remarks, I support, and it must be an example so that, it can be a deterrent to others who are going to behave the same. Cabinet secretaries, take notice that you must comply with the, summons and invitation by the Parliament so that, we deal with, this matter that dealt with. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to support.
Senator Cheruiyot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to add my voice to this very important motion brought by leader of minority, Senator James Orengo. With a lot of respect and admiration, this son of Kericho, but now serving the people of Siaya as their senator, has done us proud one more time, as he has done on many, many times throughout his career in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, it's not just a simple act of courage, because I know the season we are in, we're officially in the silly season, where even to do the right thing sometimes requires to be assessed through the political lenses that are in this country, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, on such an occasion, it would have been easy for him to sit easy and say, does it appear like it will offend so-and-so, forgetting that primarily, Mr. Speaker, the reason why we are in this house is because poor people, millions of them, woke up very early in the morning to go and queue and send us to this house as their representatives, so that any time when they have challenges such as this particular issue, we can rise up and speak on their behalf. And no other consideration should be put or made before deciding on that very sacred duty, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it's an act of courage and honor by colleagues who have decided to take up this challenge and speak up to this issue, because it's a dicey matter. It's something that has asked the heart and soul of this republic. And as representatives of the people, we will be remiss, Mr. Speaker, if we just allowed it to pass under the carpet and say, oh, we will invite the minister to come before our committee and do the following. This motion, Mr. Speaker, is in two parts. First, it focuses on the two ministers that were invited before this house. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, Mr. Speaker, because, I only had very few questions for these particular ministers. In fact, when I was told that the Minister for Petroleum is coming, the first question that I wanted to ask our former colleague, Senator Munyes, is what is the price of petrol? Because chances are high, Mr. Speaker, that because these people drive fuel guzzlers that are fueled by the people of Kenya, they have even lost touch with reality to know. I wouldn't be shocked if CS Munyes does not know how much Kenyans are complaining about, because the car he drives, if he goes home to Turkana, chances are there'll be a GK waiting for him at the airport. If he comes back to Nairobi, I see those cars at Wilson Airport every now and then, until people lose touch with reality. They forget that there are Kenyans who any change on the price of their monthly budget, Mr. Speaker, people who want 10,000 Kenya shillings, any increase even of 200 shillings on their livelihood or on their monthly overheads in their house means that either they have to skip a meal, they have to negotiate with their landlord, they have to foot to work. Then you invite people and they just have the luxury to tell you, oh, I'm out of the country on official duty. What duty is more official than coming to Parliament to respond to the people of Kenya when they ask you, what are you doing about this particular? Therefore, I support this move wholeheartedly, Mr. Speaker. But you know the bigger challenge and the bigger question that we need to be asking this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, is because you know the people of Kenya will turn back to us and say, yes, Munyes we may have heard of. Yes, Keter we know. But those are not the people that you elected. The person that you elected to take care of this republic is President Uhuru Kenyatta. At a time such as this, when the whole nation is up in arms speaking about this issue of fuel, he knows very well that the country, the economy is being ravaged by the effects of COVID and mismanagement generally of this economy under his leadership. He should at least have spoken, say something, assure people that your government is reviewing downwards, because it is within his power, one. And secondly, even us as Parliament, and I have listened about this whole debate about either we are guilty or not so guilty about it, Mr. Speaker, but the truth of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is that we need to get down to the deep down of this particular issue once we have settled the issue of ministers appearing before this House. Many of our colleagues have spoken about something, and I wish Senator Sakaja was here, Mr. Speaker, because he mentioned the Petroleum Development Levy, but the figures he gave are not accurate. I have it on firm authority that Petroleum Development Levy for the last 10 months alone is Kenya shillings 35 billion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. But that money for the last 2 months has not been released to EPRA for them to stabilize the price of petrol, as was the true intention when we passed that legislation, Mr. Speaker. So we need, and I agree with Senator Amos Wako when he spoke, and I hope members of this committee who are here, when the two ministers come, you must still invite CS for Finance Ukur Yatani and question him about the Petroleum Development Levy and why it has not been released to EPRA. If that money has been used to pay debt like every other money that is available right now, Mr. Speaker, let it be known. Because the truth of the matter is that when we came up with this, all these forms of levies, Mr. Speaker, we expected a responsible administration will take that particular amount of money and use it for the intention that which it was meant for. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, you know, the sad thing that we have come to realize about this administration is that when it comes to handling money, they are worse than a teenager addicted to gambling. They cannot spare it for more than a day, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate, it is shameful, but we must say it as it is, Mr. Speaker. And I appreciate the work that you are doing. Because I spoke here yesterday, Mr. Speaker, and I said we must address the cost of power, because it is not just about power, my colleague senators. This is about the livelihoods of Kenyans, because the minute you increase power, it means you increase virtually every cost of the basic goods that are available to the citizens. It means even the cost of power itself. And true to itself, Kenya Power has already issued a notice. They're always quick issuing these notices. This speaks to the issue of unemployment. The reason why businesses can no longer set up in Kenya is because it is extremely impossible to do business, to set up any industry in this republic as compared to the rest of the countries in the region. Simply because of what? The cost of power. And that is why when we spoke on that day, the reason why we are also looking for the Minister for Energy to come and answer is because of the cost of power that has hit the roofs, Mr. Speaker. That many people who used to pay bills of 10, 20,000 or even 1,000 Kenya shillings are now paying it in tens of thousands. How do you expect ordinary citizens to adapt to these things? Then we are told, despite paying all these bills, that Kenya Power is in the red. that last financial year, they made a pre-tax loss of 7 billion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. Who is it that is munching this amount of money, Mr. Speaker? Kenya Power is government-owned. Of course, they are private shareholders, but we must get down to the detail, Mr. Speaker. In fact, I want to propose that when members of the Energy Committee have a session to interview people from Kenya Power, let them bring to public the power purchase agreements that have been signed, so that Kenya know who are these people who are overcharging us for their power. The law of contract is simple. It cannot force you to be in contract with someone who is not meeting their end of the bargain. If you find the cost of power according to these power purchase agreements from the independent power producers are extremely expensive, Mr. Speaker, I believe as a people we are at luxury to terminate them. Therefore, let them be brought before us, because we know, and members of this committee know, because I say this, Mr. Speaker, because I used to serve in the Energy Committee, and we had asked these questions and pushed Kenya Power to a point where they were almost divulging this information. But since I left that particular committee, I haven't seen that matter being brought to light, Mr. Speaker. Kenyans deserve to know who are these independent power producers, that they are so special that even when we have geothermal generated power that is cheaper, that is cleaner, that is lean, we are not supposed to purchase before we first complete purchase from these IPPs, Mr. Speaker. We need to know who are these people, how powerful are they? We need to look them. Those documents need to be tabled before the people of Republic of Kenya through their representatives in this House, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to agree with my colleagues that have said, let us not lose sight of the reason why we are here. The reason why we are here is to, one, express our displeasure at the conduct of these two ministers, but most importantly, is to address this particular issue on the cost of power and the cost of fuel, Mr. Speaker. And I hope our colleagues, and I think this is something that maybe we should have included in the motion, that within the next 14 days, or even less, our Committee on Energy should be able to come back to this House with their findings, so that we support them and we ensure that eventually we bring down the cost of fuel and the cost of power in this country to levels that are bearable for citizens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mohamed Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia mswada huu wa lawama dhidi ya waziri wa Kawi Mheshimiwa Keter na waziri wa mafuta Mheshimiwa Munyes. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza nampongeza kiongozi wangu wa wachache katika bunge hili kwa kuweza kuleta mswada huu katika bunge la Senate. Mheshimiwa Spika, mswada huu ungeweza kuletwa na seneta yoyote katika bunge hili, lakini Seneta Orengo kwa imani yake na bunge hili na imani yake kwa wananchi wa Kenya ambao waliomchagua, aliona kwamba alete mswada huu ili kuweka wazi kuwa sisi bado tuna jukumu letu la kutekeleza kama wachache katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, wengi waliotangulia wamejaribu kulaumu mapatano baina ya Rais Uhuru Kenyatta na Waziri Mkuu Raila Odinga. Lakini mswada kama huu, Mheshimiwa Spika, hauhusiani na majukumu ya walio wengi na walio wachache katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, mbunge yote, seneta yote alikuwa na uwezo na fursa ya kuleta mswada huu katika bunge la Senate na ungejadiliwa vilivyo. Mheshimiwa Spika, mengi yamezungumzwa kuhusiana na utovu wa nidhamu wa mawaziri hao kwa kupuuza kikao cha bunge ambacho kilikuwa kimeitwa rasmi na muongozo wa spika ambao aliutoa wiki iliyokwisha. Mheshimiwa Spika, yamezungumzwa hapa kwamba ipo haja ya mawaziri hawa kulaumiwa kwa kukosa kuja katika kikao cha bunge ambacho kilikuwa kimeitwa hususan kujadili kuongezeka kwa bei ya kawi ya mafuta ya petroli pamoja na mafuta ya taa pamoja na diesel katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimejaribu kuangalia zile kanuni ambazo zinaipa fursa EPRA kuweza kuamua kuongeza bei ya mafuta kila tarehe 15 ya mwezi, na nimeona kwamba Kanuni hizo za kwanza zilichapishwa mnamo tarehe 3 mwezi wa 12 mwaka 2010. Mheshimiwa Spika, kulingana na sheria ya Statutory Instruments Act, kanuni zinafaa kuwa na muhula wa miaka 10. Na inapofika miaka 10, kanuni zile huwa zimepitwa na wakati na haziwezi kutumika tena kama sheria katika nchi yetu. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja ya waziri atakapokuwa ameitwa rasmi kuja kueleza kwamba ni lini mara ya mwisho walipoweza kufanya ukarabati wa kanuni hizi ili ziwe zinaambatana na sheria. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la pili ni kuwa Kenya Power and Lighting imekuwa monopoly kwa muda wa zaidi ya nusu karne, kwa sababu uhuru ukipatikana ilikuwa tuna shirika la East African Power and Lighting. Baadaye East African ilipoondolewa, tulipotoka katika Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki ikaja Kenya Power and Lighting. Na kwa muda mrefu Mheshimiwa Spika, shirika hili lilikuwa linapata faida kubwa kwa kuuza kawi katika Kenya. Vile vile lilikuwa liko katika soko la hisa la Nairobi Stock Exchange. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masikitiko kwa pension funds, pesa za wale wanaostaafu katika mashirika tofauti tofauti zilikuwa pia zimewekezwa katika shirika hili, na iwapo shirika litaanguka, hivyo basi wengi wataweza kupoteza rasilimali zao ambazo walikuwa wametarajia kutumia wakati wa retire. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, kuhusiana na swali la Kenya Power and Lighting, ipo haja ya kuwekwa kwa Commission of Inquiry, yani kamati ya uchunguzi, ili kuweza kuchunguza ni kwa nini shirika hili ambalo miaka michache ya nyuma ilikuwa linapata faida kubwa, kwa sasa linakuwa katika hali mahututi, haliwezi kulipa madeni, wafanyaji kazi wanakwenda wanakataa kufanya kazi, wanafanya mgomo, hali ambayo ni shirika ambalo halina mpinzani katika uuzaji wa kawi katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunapoangalia swala la kuongezeka kwa bei ya kawi, lazima tuangalie utendakazi wa Kenya Power and Lighting, shirika la umeme nchini, na vile vile pia kamati hii ya uchunguzi iweze kupewa fursa kuangalia ni vipi ilitokea kwamba shirika ambalo halina mpinzani katika biashara, shirika ambalo lilikuwa linapata faida kubwa kwa muda wa miaka michache, limeweza kuanguka na liwe halina faida yote inayopatikana. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kumalizia ni kwamba hizi kanuni ambazo zinatayarishwa na Energy Regulation Authority inafaa kuwa ni mwongozo wa zile bei, na kila mara kwa mara lazima waziri ashauriane na IPRA ili kuweza kuamua ni bei gani ambazo zinafaa kulipishwa wananchi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama ilivyotambulika ni kwa sheria yoyote ama kanuni zozote ambazo zinatungwa katika nchi yetu lazima zipitie ile tunaita public participation ama stakeholder consultation. Mheshimiwa Spika, swali la kuuliza ni je, waziri wanapotangaza hizi nyongeza kila tarehe 15 wameweza kufanya ushauriano na wananchi ama na mashirika yale ambayo yanahusika na bei za petroli katika nchi yetu ya Kenya na vile vile matumizi wa petroli hiyo? Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono mswada huu na ili liwe funzo kwa mawaziri ambao wanapuuza mwito wa bunge la Senate, ni lazima hatua kali ichukuliwe. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Christine Sawadi.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Nami pia vile vile nimesimama kuunga mkono mswada wa kushutumu hawa mawaziri wawili, ambaye ni waziri wa kawi na mwingine ni waziri wa madini pamoja na mafuta. Na kwa kuanza kabisa, wakati Mheshimiwa Senator Orengo akizungumza, ametaja vifungu vingi vya sheria, lakini kuna kimoja ambacho nataka kuzungumzia, kwamba bunge ni sawasawa na mahakama kuu. Kwa hivyo liko na nguvu sawia na mahakama kuu. Lakini najiuliza moyoni mwangu, ama najiuliza akilini mwangu, je, ni kweli bunge ni sawa na mahakama kuu? Kwa sababu kama ingekuwa sawa, basi wale mawaziri wangekuwa wako hapa pale jana walipoambiwa waje. Lakini mbona hawakuja? Ni kwa sababu kuna hitilafu fulani, kuna kasoro fulani ambayo iko ndani ya mabunge yetu, ambapo kuna vitu fulani ambavyo vitengenezwe ziwe sawa, ili tukisema tuko sawa na bunge na mahakama kuu, basi iwe ni kweli tuko sawa na mahakama kuu. Na pia vile vile kama Seneta Wetangula amezungumzia akasema iweje bandari tuko nao sisi hapo Mombasa ama tuko nao sisi wa Kenya, lakini iweje Sudani na Uganda wao wanapata mafuta kwa bei nzuri, sisi tununue kwa bei ghali? Basi kisha utashangaa ukijua Nairobi pia ni afadhali kuliko Mombasa ukienda kununua mafuta. Kwa nini basi? Kuna vitu ambavyo vinafanyika ambavyo sisi kama wabunge, juzi tu nimekuwa mazishini, wamesimama wakaniambia wewe kama seneta tuambie kunafanyika nini huko, mbona mafuta yamepanda? Je, ninajibu la kujibu mimi? Isipokuwa ni wale mawaziri waje hapa watujibu, na mimi siwezi kumuita president hapa nimwambie nijibu hili na hili. Ameniwekea mawaziri ambao ni wajibu, ni waulize yale maswali ambayo yanaambatana na maisha ya kila siku. Kama tukikumbuka hapo nyuma, manake mafuta yanagusa mwananchi moja kwa moja. Hapo nyuma tulizungumzia masuala ya waziri wa agriculture, wa kilimo, wakati wa Nzige. Akatupeleka huku haikueleweka. Vile vile tukaja tukasumbuliwa na waziri mwingine ambaye alikuwa anagusa maisha yetu, tena waziri wa afya. Tukasumbuka sana na wakati ugonjwa huu wa corona ulipoanza kuingia, tukapata shida sana na huyo waziri huyo. Tukaanza kumsikia sana kwa vyombo vya habari wakati ugonjwa ushaingia. Je, kinga na tiba faida nini? Hayo yote yanafanyika na bunge bado liko hapa. Bado tukisema yani sisi tuwabweka tu, lakini kuuma hatuwezi kuuma. Na pia vile vile nikiongezea nikisema hili jambo linagusa mwananchi, linamgusa moja kwa moja, kwa sababu hivi sasa kama alikuwa akipata bodaboda kwenda mahali pachache pa shilingi 50 imekuwa 100 ama 150 ama hata 200. Huyo ni ule mchochole wa chini kabisa ambaye hana kitu. Vile vile kama ni kupanda gari matatu, mahali ambapo ulikuwa ukienda kwa 100 shilingi 20 ama 30 imepanda, imekuwa bei ya juu. Je, tunasaidia mwananchi ama tunamdidimiza? Hawa viongozi tuliwaeka ili waangalie mwananchi anapata fueni, ama tuliwaeka wachukue tone la damu lililobakia walifinyange walimalize? Sasa mimi kama seneta sina majibu, lakini hawa mawaziri wana majibu haya ambayo tunayo. Na mwananchi wanajua, wananchi hakuwachagua waziri. Mwananchi amechagua maseneta, mwananchi amechagua wabunge, mwananchi yule amemchagua president. Sisi ndio yule mwananchi anatuuliza maswali, ambao yale maswali sisi hatuwezi kuyajibu mpaka hawa mabwana. Sasa mimi pendekezo langu, manake sitakuwa mwingi wa maneno, mengi yamezungumziwa, lakini nataka kugusia mwananchi jambo moja. Tulizungumzia hapo nyuma tukasema kwamba misitu usikatwe manake inaharibu mazingira, na hilo nakubaliana nalo. Lakini kwa kufanya vile tulitoa njia mwafaka nyingine kwamba kuna wanaweza tumia magesi, wanaweza tumia majiko ya gasi ambao natumia hata pia mafuta, ama saa zingine unatumia umeme. Je, wakati huu umeme umepanda, labda gesi zimepanda, huyu mwananchi wa kawaida tulikuwa tumepanga pikie na nini? Kama makaa kupatikana ni shida, tulisema ikatizwe, labda ila kutengeneza yako gali. Na saa hii ukipata mkebe mmoja makaa, nyinyi ni vile hampiki na makaa, nyinyi mngekuwa mashahidi wangu. Makaa yako gali kama nini? Watu sasa wameona njia ambao wanaweza itumia ni njia ya waweke moto ili waweze kutumia magesi. Gesi yatumika. Watu wa moto wenyewe wana shida. Ikiwa moto mwenyewe kuupata ilikuwa wengine wanapimiwa hewa. Yaani masaa 3 mwafunguliwa, masaa mengine mshazimiwa. Kama una biashara una friji una masamaki kama kule kwetu wanamalizika kuoza, hayo hayakutosha. Wapewa bili ambayo huijui ilitoka wapi. Walipa kila mwezi.
What's it, Senator Sakaja?
Asante sana bwana. Asante bwana Speaker. Ningependa kumwarifu Senator na sijafurahia kwa sababu nimemkatiza, alikuwa anaenda vizuri sana kwa mwendo wa aste. Lakini ningependa kumjulisha kwa sababu alisema labda hatujui bei ya makaa, na akasema labda gasi imepanda. Kweli gasi ilipanda na shilingi 350. Na ndio maana sote tunakubaliana ya kwamba kina mama sana zaidi, kwa sababu sana mama ndio wanapika, wanaumia. So ni ile kufahamisha kwamba imepanda na shilingi 350. Pia makaa imepanda kwa sababu kukata miti ilipigwa marufuku. So kila mbinu ya kupika imepanda. Asante.
Asante kwa kufahamikiana na mimi ama kwa kukubaliana na mimi. Kweli vitu vimepanda, na kama mnaofahamu huo nashukuru. Hawa mabwana tunawazungumzia hapa, wao mafuta ufanya kuwekea, hata hawajui wanauzwa bei gani. Sisi ndo tunapiga kelele tunasema mafuta yamepanda, lakini wao hawajui. Hivi ving'ora sisi wabunge ambao tunawakilisha mwananchi haturuhusiwi kwenda na escort ya askari, lakini huyo ambaye hakuchaguliwa ana kibendera ya kipeperusha, mpeperushia nani bendera hii barabarani? Na haya hana jukumu lolote na mwananchi. Lakini vile vile mamlaka yote wamepewa wao. Juzi tumeenda Mombasa na kamati ya ardhi, kamati ya barabara na ujenzi. Tukifika kule tumesubiri waziri, na unajua tumetumia pesa ya serikali kutufikisha sisi kule. Tumfika hakutuma mtu yoyote, hakuna barua, hakuna lolote, yeye mwenyewe hakuja. Ni mawaziri hao. Sasa sisi hatuna mamlaka ya kuwatoa makazini, lakini National Assembly wako na mamlaka hayo. Jamani, kama umewa mwanamke na hazai, wakati wa kuzaa wang'ang'ana azae za mtoto wakufa, maana hata kusikia uchungu. Maana uchungu wa kuzaa ukiambiwa usukume ama push kwa kizungu. Hiyo push ama hiyo kusukuma si rahisi. Sasa kuna wengine huwa waoga kusukuma, hawasukumi, wanangoja mtoto afe ndo azaliwe. Sasa hana faida mwanamke huyo, na Biblia pia karudi pale pale akasema tawi lisilozaa likatwe. Basi National Assembly hawa watu mmewaeka na hawana maana, na nyinyi ndio mnawaoji. Wakati umefika wa kung'ata. Tusiwe mbwa ambao hayana meno. Sasa tuwe mbwa ambao wana meno. Tung'ate ili tumsaidie yule president pale. Manake kuna mengine labda, na kama wengine walivyozungumza hapa wamesema itaweza kuwa mabwana hawana makosa. Kama hawana makosa na viatu walivyovivaa vya wafinya kupita kiasi, wavivue, waziache hizo nafasi watu wengine waingie. Lakini yale ambayo yanaendelea mpaka sasa, mimi namwonea huruma Mkenya jamani. Mkenya kila siku mwanzo kipandisha mafuta, amepandisha kila kitu. Unga wa simo umepanda, kila kitu kimepanda. Kilecha mwananchi ule wa chini kabisa hakuna cha rahisi, maana kila kitu kinatumia mafuta, aidha kisabwe ama kitengenezwe. Hayo yule mwananchi wa chini ako na fueni gani? Hakuna. Basi nawasihi tu. Kwanza nawashtumu sana hawa mabwana. Mimi ni vile sina uwezo, lakini nyinyi leo mngetoka maofisini. Manake hamfai hata peni. Lakini kwa sababu sina uwezo, wale wenye uwezo huo basi watekeleze ili wahakikisha hawa watu, manake hawa wakitolewa kama hawawezi ofisi zao kienda, itakuwa ni mfano kwa wengine. Ili yao ambao tunazungumza hapa sio maneno matupu, bali yawe na maana ndani yake. Kwa hayo mengi machache, naunga mkono mswada.
Senator Lokorio Petronila Were.